No, but like seriously, that's a little bit. That's a little bit. So it's like if you have a budget of $300, let's say for a date, bring four.
Yeah, pretty true.
Almost like construction.
Yeah, yeah.
Almost like construction. You gotta get like at least 25% extra.
100%.
My budget to take you on a date is $300. You know what? I'm gonna bring four.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
That could be a great teaser. So hi everybody, welcome back to another episode with Acadia on Air with Vic here. Hi Vic.
Hi.
And myself, Max. We're going to have a great episode for you today. We are actually not going to discuss bylaws. We're not going to discuss building codes or, specific construction things here. But I think it's an episode that a lot of you wanted to see. It's an episode about young people, mainly. There's a lot of young people that are trying,
Including me.
including yourself, yes, that are trying to know and would want to know what do they need to do when they are buying a property. We're not going to discuss all the, details about how to buy a property because that's not what we do here, right?
Yeah. It's more like a leisure conversation and discussions.
Yeah, but we are going to discuss mainly what steps to take to make sure that you maybe not getting yourself in trouble when looking at a property. Some, tips and tricks that we can give people, young people, when they're going to look at a property, because with the amount of money that those properties cost right now, the last thing you want is to invest all your life savings into such a big buy and get yourself,
like huge that kind
a
of
lemon.
stuff. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, that's pretty true. That's pretty true. So, like actually, I have quite a few questions in mind, but my first question is more like kind of not personal, but kind of asking you. So, what is your, like your first home when you were like, young? Like, did you build it by yourself or you look it
No.
up? Just yeah, just like like.
So
kind of curious.
So actually, funny enough, no. There's not a lot of people, I think, in the market that are able to build their first home. And people that do so, good for them. They clearly don't need our tips and tricks. They have their parents with their tips and tricks.
Oh, yeah.
It's called a bank account, which is a little bit different. But no, usually, so I don't know. I can give you myself as an example, but usually I'll tell you about usually what people do.
Yeah.
So most of the time, young people are trying to get into the market.
Right.
The first thing that young people are really trying to do is to try and get into the market, because what happens is the market runs ahead and prices are growing. You got two kind of people. I always like to divide people to categories. That's why I always say what kind of people. So you got the first kind of person that really has certain expectations and would just like to collect a certain amount of down payment to get what they want, which is a great idea, but unfortunately not in our market, because what happens is with inflation and with the cost of housing, you're always going to be running behind the market because your money is losing value.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Yeah.
And by the way, that's a discussion, so I'll be happy if you ask me more questions and stop me, because I want to make sure that the people at home also understand what we're talking about.
Sure.
So person one will have an issue with running after the market, and they will try and collect, and they will work hard. They will do everything, to get this down payment. And of course, there is a second person who realizes that or had a little bit more tips and tricks from us.
Yeah.
And the idea is to get something. Because as soon as you get a certain property, what happens is now you're part of the market. Your property, you don't run after getting a property anymore. You have the property, and then you pretty much gain more and more value with the market.
True.
But so the idea is you gotta get whatever you can. So this kind of investor will also kind of be divided into different categories.
Yeah.
So the one that will get where their down payment is lower, they would get, let's say, a condominium, a condo in a condominium. And of course, the value there is lower. But that's how, by the way, I started, and that's how most of people start.
Yeah.
You know, you get a condo, you kind of you don't need a huge down payment for it. Clearly, you are not getting the value for a house, but you got some kind of property. And what happens is, with the running market, you're a little bit more behind of the person that would buy a house.
Right.
But at least you are there. You're running with the market, and you can still keep working hard to get more and more money. So what eventually people do, they work hard, let's say, for 6-7 years.
Yeah.
Well, I'm assuming this market, right? They would get not 6-7, 4-5. They would get a down payment, get themselves a condo. While they're living in a condo, they keep working. Of course, they have a job. Most people have a full-time job or whatever they have.
True.
And then they sell this condo.
And flip it.
5, 6. You can of course flip it.
Yeah, flip
5,
it, right?
6 years later, get the money that you earned, the gains on the condo, add with the money that you had, and now you can afford yourself a house. Okay. There's another kind of investor, a homeowner, where you would get a fixer-upper.
Right.
Not for everybody, but you can get yourself a fixer-upper if you're a handy person, if you're willing to work hard. You know, all the young people our days, like yourself, by the way, are willing to go on YouTube and learn. There's a lot of information that wasn't there before. YouTube, we're here.
Search for us.
So there's a lot of healthy information out there to how to do things.
True.
So there's a lot of things that a young person, and it became kind of like a cool thing to do, a lifestyle, which is great. Not to call a contractor, but okay, I want to remove this wall. I want to remove this closet. I can demolish it myself. I can move it myself.
Yeah, I look
of
it up.
course, make
Yeah.
sure that you're not demolishing something that is load bearing, but
Otherwise
that's a
you need
different story.
permits, right?
But yeah, so when I personally started my journey into investments and into housing, that actually was my journey. I got myself a condominium. I lived in this condominium, in this condo.
And kind of
And moved on.
Yeah.
Clearly, we had a different market back then. The market was in a different place. So, I was able to work hard, as I'm suggesting to everybody else, and get another property while still living and renting this condo. So this condo was paying for itself by having having a tenant in it.
Yeah.
Right? And myself, I was able to move myself and my family to another house.
to that house.
Yeah.
Right. So would you recommend? So let's say for me, right? I'm working and I do have a few
I
penny
can
in my.
assure you are working.
Yeah. Well, because I'm here right now. So I do have let's say not only for me, but young people out there, having few penny in their bank account. So would you recommend? Because this is actually my thought before, and actually now is buying one condo, and maybe one living room, 2 washrooms and 2 bedrooms, right? Because my thought is having the other room set as an Airbnb.
Oh, wow.
Would you recommend? Would you recommend it? Because it's kind of like an open discussion, right? So I'm also quite curious, people out there, having strangers every single week to come to your condo.
Yeah.
How do you guys feel?
So I'll tell you what
how
I
also-
think about
yeah.
it personally.
Yeah,
from
how
my
do you feel? Yeah.
perspective as an investor.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you what I think about it as for you, if you kind of want to leave and earn. So, Yeah, first of all, I definitely encourage, again, as I said, not to run after the market for too long and try to make everything perfect. Perfect makes you wait, kind of, and I think lose,
Yeah.
because your money sitting in the bank loses its value. We just discussed that.
Yeah.
I definitely think if you have a certain amount that you can invest into real estate, that's a great idea. Especially now, it's not a seller's market; it's a buyer's market. But there's a but. Uh, so because it's a seller's market, you can definitely bargain and you get something better for cheaper. Because our market is so slow right now, because everything that is going on, not a lot of people buy.
Right.
So there's a lot of condos on market for a long time. Oh yeah, right now real estate is kind of slow. So this is a buyer's market. So to buy for yourself, to have this buyer power to bargain, that's great. Whether I would, so now with asking that question, you kind of asked subconsciously two more questions.
Yeah.
If I want to rent it out, what would rent out best? So I think that the best for investment is actually not to go with a 2-bedroom apartment. Is actually to go with maybe 1 bedroom and a den.
Okay.
Because the idea is this: who rents apartments? Let's think about it. Most of the time, young people, because older people would
rather have.
sold a house
Yeah.
and kind of downgrade to a condo. So those are young people who rent apartments that are either students, either international students,
Yeah.
or young families that are trying to get young people that are trying, just starting
To work their way up.
getting together, and
Yeah.
yes. So what's going to happen is, think about it this way: if you are renting it to a family, like a family with kids, would probably look for more space. A family with one kid usually upgrade for 1 plus den, 2 working people that are upgrading to something else. And I personally, it sounds interesting, but I personally don't like people that stay for too long.
Yeah.
Especially, we have a lot of problems on the market right now.
Yeah.
We all know how renters in some situations decide not to leave, so you don't want to lose. So which means you don't want to get into a situation where you have to wait for a year and a half to get renters out, which could be a problem.
Yeah.
But because then you're paying a mortgage for a year and a half
Yeah.
and not getting anything back. So with that being said, 1 bedroom plus den means if you are a young couple that are splitting up for some reason, you're just leaving the apartment.
Right. Right.
If
right,
you're
right.
a young couple that having a baby, there's only so much time you can live in there before you need to grow, and then you're leaving because you need a bedroom for the baby.
Yeah.
So with that being said, I feel that 1 bedroom plus den is the best for great tenants that will not be problematic. Now, having yourself, a third question that you were asking, having an apartment for yourself as 1 bedroom and rent the other bedroom,
Yeah.
it's possible, but it's really a question of how much privacy you need, and especially Airbnb having a stranger in your place
If
as
it's
well.
a weekend.
Yeah.
Which is kind of weird.
So if you already do that,
mean, some
usually
people,
you
yeah.
would want to rent it to a friend or something that would be there, like
Oh,
a
would
student
be
full time or something like that. That makes sense.
More
Because then
appropriate,
it's
yeah.
kind of
You guys know each other.
exactly.
Yeah.
You don't feel the violation of privacy versus waking up in the morning and all of a sudden having somebody in their underwears,
And,
Pink-
running, and making breakfast.
pink underwear with flowers on the left and right, making breakfast.
Yeah.
Respectful, I don't care about the pink underwears, but I care about the fact that you want a
Yeah,
little
exactly.
bit of privacy. That's
It's
just
somehow pretty weird. you
yeah.
know?
So this is something that I would try and avoid. Yeah, but also And another argument to why is not the best idea is if you need to rent a 2 bedrooms condo because you have issues, let's say, pay for it,
Yeah.
maybe you should buy a 1 bedroom condo. And then you don't need to have the 2nd bedroom to rent.
Right.
And the payments are less.
That makes
Right?
sense. Yeah.
So condominium is not really something that you would, sublease. Oh, I mean, not sublease. Sublease is when you're renting as well. But I mean, so lease it to someone
Lease
while
it to
living
someone,
there. Yeah. And also, again, if you're a professional, if you're, you're going to work and back every day, what do you need? You need a bedroom to sleep. You need a living room, kitchen to entertain, and some den to have your computer so that,
Yeah, and-
you can do your office stuff. And 1 bedroom plus
One
den
bedroom,
is more than enough.
So be way more appropriate, right? So, because I'm pretty new here, and so this kind of question is not only asking for, because I'm pretty sure for most young people they also have this kind of questions, but also for the national, buyers, if they first here and they want to buy a house. So how do people usually looking for those condominium, like on marketplace, on Facebook Marketplace, or online? Like how do you, like for people like us, first time in the market, trying to find those kind of places to rent, to buy, to purchase?
Well,
What is the
yeah.
like the best platform to go to? Like what's
So
your
I'll
go-to?
tell you what.
Yeah.
The one thing I would not suggest probably is to try and close a deal on your own without a real estate agent the first time around.
Good point. Yeah.
I've done a couple of deals like that where, we had friends that were selling and that kind of stuff. So it can work. It can work. You just hire a lawyer and, you close everything in.
Yeah.
But when you're a first-time buyer, there's quite a few things you should care about. And let's not talk about a condominium for a second. Let's talk about a house.
Yeah.
Because it requires a little bit more research.
Yeah.
As a first-time buyer, when you buy in, usually for a young person, is some kind of fixer-upper, right? You're not going to buy a fully... Well, again, if you can, that's a different category. But we're talking about young people that are trying really to get a property nowadays. You're going to buy something that is a little bit cheaper, that is a fixer-upper that you're willing to invest into. And what's going to happen is you need to check quite a few things. First of all, you got to make sure that everything with the house is intact. So I would definitely suggest for young people to get a real estate that can either guide them to do so, or they can hear this video and listen to it, because that's important, is to invest probably $400 or $500 depending on which one, but to get an inspector that can come into the house. So what they do is before you buy a house, before you sign, when you ready to purchase, you can get an inspector, which I'm sure. Sorry about that.
Yeah.
Every real estate agent know one. So you can get an inspector. The inspector would come in, review, and they would tell you, okay, there's a crack in the foundation that needs to be fixed.
Good. Yeah.
So you, as a young person that has a limited budget, knows, okay, that's going to need to be fixed. I need to find how much that's going to cost. You need to make sure that, the basement smells a little bit funny. Maybe there is a moisture issue. Some kind of, look, there was a wall removed here. We need to make sure it was done right. Issues. So all those things is something that you should, a window that caulking needs to be redone all over the house, this, that. So eventually you get this report and you know how much money you're going to need to invest into it. Okay, that's definitely the number one thing that I would suggest to every young buyer to do. Not to try and be like, I'm handy, let me just buy this fixer-upper and I'll fix it. The last thing you want to get is you're buying a house, which I've done in my life, unfortunately.
Yeah.
That's why it's great if people are
to know
learning
people.
from my experience not to do that. But, you're trying to renovate, you remove some drywall, and you see a lot of mold behind. And all of a sudden you're like, okay, let's remove more and more and more. And you get yourself into 2-story renovations. Maybe you can't afford yourself to finish these renovations, and you're in trouble.
Right.
So another thing that an inspector should be doing actually is having the tools that you cannot afford. Like you can have a thermal camera that costs $1,500 to $2,000 that will tell you whether there's a moisture behind the wall.
Oh.
You know, sometimes you come into showers, for an example, and you find that there is literally wet
behind the
area
paint. Yeah.
behind the drywall,
Yeah.
a wet corner or whatever. You got to make sure that this is not happening to you. Or if it does, and you're like, okay, I'm pretty handy, I'm gonna open the wall, remove the drywall, remove the insulation, quickly fix it, paint it, whatever necessary, and we're good. But you got to make sure that you're on top of that. You got to make sure that you're in charge of that.
Right.
So this is the second thing that is very important. The first thing that is very important, and then when this homework is done, your real estate should be also smart enough to definitely pull out all the permits. Like sometimes you would buy a house and there's a nice addition and you love this addition and everything, but it can be colder or something happens. It wasn't done right. It wasn't done with permits. Or all of a sudden you buy a house, very open, very nice, but you see cracks on the ceilings. And you're like, I don't know if there was a load-bearing wall removed here or not. Like I would probably be able to see it 99.9% of the time and determine what happened there.
Right.
Without opening any walls. But, you know, the standard homeowner, especially a young person who has nothing to do with construction or, you know, they wouldn't know.
Not so many experience behind
So
the
you
build.
would want to make sure that nothing was done without permits, because if it was, maybe you want the previous owners to, you know, to pay for permits, to
Right.
pay for the renovation, to so it gives you also the opportunity to bargain for the price. Imagine if you're buying, let's say, a property for, I don't know, let's say $1.2 million, a house. And you realize that something is done illegally in it. So now you have the opportunity to tell the seller, okay, listen, I realize that there are issues. I realize that I checked there is a problem with load-bearing wall. This kind of renovation cost 30, 40 grand. I think you should reduce it from the price of the house.
Yeah.
Okay? So now the owner thinks, okay, we are in a buyer's market, not in a seller's market. I was just happy to have this person interested in buying the house.
Yeah.
I should reduce this $40,000, get it, because, you know, I bought the property, let's say 7, 8, 9 years ago. I made, let's say, $300,000-$400,000 on it. It's fine. I'm going to reduce 40 grand just to sell it.
It's okay. Yeah.
You know, so that gives young people leverage to communicate and to try to get as much as they can for the value.
Right. Right.
Right? Like, I had a situation lately with actually a friend who did legally renovated the house, wanted to sell, and part of the renovation was illegal. So after he got the permits and everything approved and everything done, he did a certain renovation, which I don't want to go into it. I hope they will watch this episode and enjoy it without being upset that, you know, we gave this as an example. But they did an illegal renovation, and the homeowner, the new homeowner, was actually smart enough to realize that there was stuff done without permits. And yes, he was liable for it, and they made him fix it. And pretty much even after everything was signed, they pretty much said, based on the condition that you did not declare that there were issues with the house, we're going to either get away from the deal or you fix it. And he had to invest and fix it, and he did a great job. No argue there. But yeah, this is something that you can hold the seller to. You know, this is something that you can bargain. Or sometimes the seller would say, well, you know what, how about I drop, let's say, $20,000, $30,000 of the price, and you
can do
it
by
yourself.
Yeah.
You know, so those are the two things that probably I would say need to be researched the most. And the last thing is,
So just to tease out a little bit, so you would say hiring an inspector is imperative.
Yeah. Now, let me put a disclaimer out there.
Okay.
Not all inspectors are great inspectors. Not all inspectors are very knowledgeable. But really, what you need is, like, I can assure you. So inspectors are just people that decided to get an inspection license. You get a quick exam. I'm not underestimating inspectors. Most of them are great contractors that know what they're doing. Some of them are just people who,
They just,
decided to get home inspector license. They get a quick test. They get approved, and
that's it.
That's it. And they come into your house without doing construction
proper,
or renovations before.
Yeah.
And they don't really give you the right information about things. But the fact that an inspector can put a highlight on something that could be potentially a problem, that should be great. That should be great. Another situation that we had, as an example, I know a young buyer. You're enjoying that, right? So I know a young buyer who actually, did not do all that because they wanted to buy a house and they wanted to invest $20,000-$30,000 to replace the bathrooms, and they were very tight on budget, which I can kind of understand. And they took a chance. They took on the house, and believe it or not, the foundation in this house was compromised, and the house was sinking.
Whoa.
Because a neighbor built a new house, and they compromised the soil, they compromised the ground, and this house was sinking an inch or something a year.
That's quite a lot,
And
actually. Yeah.
that's a lot.
That's
and the
quite a
house
lot.
started cracking and everything.
Wow.
Unfortunately, he called me in. I did not want to deal with it because that was,
This is quite an arduous task.
that was quite problematic. I'm not even going to
just
tell you
cannot-
what were my advices.
I just cannot
But-
imagine. Yeah.
You want to avoid that situation.
Right.
And he had a full corner at the front of the house that pretty much, unfortunately, had issues. I think he fixed it. I think he figured it out.
Yeah.
To me, it was, a big deal.
Wow.
Yeah. And that's definitely a friend of mine that will be watching this episode.
Whoa.
And they did great pretty much managing the damages. But you got to be knowledgeable to do so. You got to be prepared for that thing to do so.
Like before purchase.
Yes.
The house, yeah.
Yes. So you got to know what you're going for.
But I'm just wondering, do you know where to find the proper guy? Like where to find the proper inspectors? Because you said, first of all, if a young guy, like anyone, right? Anyone who wants to purchase a house, a condo, anyone, first of all is to looking for a broker.
Well, first of all, definitely to
Then-
have a real estate who can guide you,
Right.
who can guide you through the process. You can't, a baby doesn't learn walking on themselves,
True.
right? You need somebody to guide you. If you have knowledgeable parents, that's great. If you don't, you got to have somebody that will
Who's
guide you how to do
professional
things
too,
right.
Yeah.
You lucky to have me.
Yeah.
Not everybody has that situation.
Exactly.
Yeah, but overall, you gotta have somebody guiding you, and it's not even a matter of, oh well, if I don't talk to them, I might save myself a couple of bucks. No, if you don't have this couple of bucks to and also usually real estates are doing everything for percentages.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you the truth, great real estates even help out young people and may reduce in order to get the property, they will reduce out of their
The commission.
commission.
Right.
And
That's good.
yeah, just to kind of, because again, you rather make something than nothing,
Yeah.
especially in our market where not a lot sells. So with that being said, definitely first of all, to have somebody who you can trust, real estate, and willing to spend their time with you.
Right. So can a real estate broker, having an inspector license? Can you have
No.
like dual
So
listen.
listen.
Just wondering.
I'll tell you what, I heard about those situations.
But are you allowed to have?
But I think a real estate that having an inspector license, something is wrong. It's
Really?
either they're a bad inspector or a bad real estate, one of the two.
Really?
Because real estate don't need to be inspectors to sell houses. Inspectors don't need to be real estates to check on houses.
Right. So usually they'll have like
Like usually a real estate
Yeah.
has an ecosystem around them. Like for example, we in Acadia will work with, as you know, with real estate agents that we are being referred to do the renovations for the clients and to introduce us to their clients because they trust our advice,
Ability, yeah.
right? Opinions.
Right.
Now, I'll be honest with you. A lot of real estates call me to review their properties, or our staff, right? We're not, I'm not officially an inspector, but being a design, engineering, and architectural firm, at the end of the day, that's what we deal with on a regular basis. And the constructions and everything we do, that's what we deal with on a daily basis. So therefore, I know when I come to a house, this is the first thing I see, all those flaws. I don't need to be, again, I don't want to be arrogant because you know me, I'm very
down to earth.
Yeah, and give everybody the benefit of the doubt. But in many situations, I would probably know more than inspectors. Like I've seen inspectors' reports that are talking about a bad baseboard, which who cares about? Like you can replace a baseboard. They would talk about a baseboard for half an hour in the report versus not see a crack. But when you are buying a property and putting your life savings into such an important investment, you gotta minimize your risks.
Yeah.
Exactly. You gotta minimize and you gotta control your risks. And if $400 extra means, yes, maybe somebody that will come and talk about the baseboard, but they will probably also see a soffit that is incorrectly done. And, okay, so you got a broken soffit. Maybe there was an animal living in the attic, which was taken out. So you got to check, maybe there was a nest or whatever. Or, okay, I see different shingles. Maybe that was fixed by the seller just to sell. Maybe you got a roof problem.
It's kind of iffy,
So at least to bring those points out there. Yeah. I think we're over talking about that whole situation.
but
but really, I'm just stressing over the fact that very important to bring an inspector, to bring, and of course, lastly, what I want to talk is if you are if you're looking at a house and you've seen couple of viewings and you know that you want to buy the house and you want to do something, some kind of renovation, remove walls or whatever.
Yeah.
Having your consultant or having a designer, architect, a company like ours be there before and letting you know how much this process is going to cost you for the build, for the design, for the renovations before you actually buy the property. Because again, we've seen situations of people buying properties. They assumed, again, real estate agents, they love to give suggestions.
Yeah.
Oh, that's going to cost you $20,000. Okay, $20,000. You buy the house, you bring a contractor like me, we'll look around and we're like, oh, that's going to cost $60,000. Okay. And then what happens?
What happens?
You can't afford it.
Yeah.
And you live 2-3 years in the middle of renovations.
Yeah.
Which can be a buzzkiller overall, and we're not going to go into the psychology behind that. What happens to a person who lives inside a constant renovations, and it's difficult.
Yeah.
Or you try to fix it by finding the cheapest contractor, getting yourself into more trouble, which we discussed that previously.
Yeah.
And probably we're going to discuss it more than once and twice in the future.
Yeah, exactly. That's our premium package. No. Yeah. You remember the package we were talking about? The packages, yeah.
By the way, let's put a note out there.
Yeah.
Let's have Jamie putting a note out there.
Yeah.
See if we can find the episode where we are discussing that, and maybe have it in the as a reference in this episode as well.
The package,
so that people can see our ideas of how to get a contractor as well.
Yeah.
But you definitely don't want to get yourself to this situation when you're tight, when you want to make sure that you are getting all the right crews and controlling your budget, controlling your information before you buy something. And of course, not to be emotional, because you remember how I was saying in the beginning, first you need to get something small in order to not to run behind the market, but be part of the market.
Part of the market, yeah.
again, we all need to understand a huge, huge, huge disclaimer out there. If something doesn't work, and maybe it's not the right time at the end of the day, anyways, maybe you should still wait and try and
Yeah.
get something else. Not to run into the first property you get, to do your homework, to make sure that the right team is there. And lastly, which is the zoning bylaws.
Yeah.
So if, let's assume you want to buy a property and you want an addition, you want to expand, you want to build, I don't know, some kind of bigger addition in the house, you got to make sure that it's feasible, that the city would allow you to do so. You got to make sure that you're within all the rules and regulations of how to do so.
Yeah.
Or you buy a bungalow and want to build a second story, or you want to, for example, buy a house and you can't pay for it, and you need to build a second unit. And all of a sudden you're looking into the bylaws, and the bylaws don't allow you a second unit. And now you're stuck with a house that you can't even pay for. What are you going to do then? In a market where it's not really a seller's market, you can't even, you're going to sell it, you might get yourself in trouble now. So definitely to make sure that you check that you have a
Permits.
real estate agent
Yeah.
that can hold your hand and help you out on that. That you have, because I'm stressing over that, responsible real estate agent.
Yeah.
That you know your zoning bylaws, what is that you want to do, unless you just have an envelope and you just want to have that envelope, nothing outside. Yeah. And of course, an inspector.
Right.
Or somebody who you really trust, that they understand structures, how houses build, like a consultant.
Right.
Yes.
So because we were talking about like brokers and inspectors, right? I'm just wondering what kind of questions. I mean, and also based on the feeling and the vibe, when you are having a conversation with the broker, same as the few episodes back, we were talking about how to choose the right consultants, right? I'm just wondering, like, what kind of main questions, or like how to discern, who's good and who's bad for like a broker. Just
Yeah.
wondering.
Oh, for a broker.
Yeah, for
a
broker.
real estate broker.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what, real estate broker, really there is only one thing that determines a good broker. You got two brokers, really. At the end of the day, all of them are real estate agents.
Yeah.
All of them are there to buy a property for you. But I remember my first experience dealing.
Oh, stories.
Story
time.
stories.
Story time.
I remember my first experience dealing with the broker that I worked with for many years. She's amazing. And so number one, where you see who's a good broker, is the broker that is not trying just to quickly buy on your behalf the first property you've seen or something like that. Let me just buy it and get it over with. Is the broker that is willing to take the time, walk around the city with you again and again to get the property for you. It's a broker that will tell you, I want to show that to you, but I don't think that you should buy that. I want you to understand the market. I think we should look a little bit more. So that's number one thing.
The sign of a good broker.
Yeah, that is very important. Second sign is, like, I remember, and literally that's what I've done. I remember when we were getting one of the properties, and the property cost an X amount of money, and I told her, so I'll talk numbers just for the sake of, explanations how important this is. So the property was back then around $850,000, and I decided to buy the property, and I told her to fill up the paperwork. She did, and she asked me, okay, what the price that we're putting. I said $790. So she told me, Max, $790 they will probably not agree for. That's a very low ball. So I asked her one question. I said, let me ask you a question. Who are you working for, them or me?
That's a pretty good
And
question.
she said, she said, it's probably not going to work. I said, listen, do your job, do your best. I believe in you. You can probably get it done. What do you think happened?
Get it done.
I got the property for
Well done.
$795.
Lovely.
It was a rental property previously that apparently there were a couple of small issues in there, which I was aware of because I've seen the property. And, and to make a long story short, I got the property. If I were to listen to her, she wanted us to start with 740, with 840.
840. Right.
Yeah. So that kind of agent that when you talk to them has that common sense, not to tell you, listen, you are a young buyer, don't worry about it. I know what I'm doing. Because their idea is to get more commission and their idea is, they should work for you.
True.
And and since then, of course, I'm working with the same real estate agent and she's great with us. And, every time when we're looking for to get some kind of investment property, I definitely use her. And even now that we're looking for quite like a few properties, she's showing me apartments. And by the way, this is why I was able to discuss apartments with you, because I'm looking for those as well on some basis. And yes, she was walking with us and showing us, and she's
good.
great. And we're not rushing to just
get finished.
Yes.
Yeah.
And she's shown us even things that I'm probably not going to buy, but show me why it's not good for me. And that's the kind of real estate you should get.
Right.
Yeah.
But how do buyers educate themselves? For example, like for me, I never involve into. I mean, right now I am, but for most people who's not fully involved into real estate, who's not fully involved into construction, of course, right?
Yeah.
How to educate myself themselves? Asking the right questions. Do you have any good sources? Do you have
100%.
Yeah.
So I told you, for an example, how to deal with a real estate.
Yeah.
Okay. Those are the basics. So how to confirm that any information is a correct information when you're a young person who doesn't know is mainly to cross information. How do you cross information? So for an example, you're buying a property where you want to get a secondary unit.
Yeah.
And most of properties in the city allow secondary units, so I don't want people to worry about it.
Yeah.
But the last thing that I'm using a secondary unit because that's just simple example. So you want to buy a house and you want to use this house also as a rental in order to pay some of the mortgage.
Right.
So you go to your real estate, and real estate, of course, you can have a secondary unit. But then you buy the house and you realize you start building a unit.
Right.
A neighbor complains. You have to apply for permits. You apply for permits and you realize that you're not allowed to have a secondary unit in this area. Wow. What do? It's a shocker.
Yeah.
It's a knockdown sometimes.
Yeah.
So what do you do?
It's so disappointing.
So my suggestion is to cross references.
Yeah.
And the reason is because I have seen hundreds of real estates that, believe you me, are not 100% on information.
Wow.
They are not. Some of them are not aware
Yeah.
about permits. Some of them aware or just not giving you that
Which is
because
kinda
it's not their obligation. It's your obligation as a homeowner to know.
Right.
So my suggestion is, you have an address. You drop by the municipality
And ask.
and you say, I have an address. I want a secondary unit.
Yeah.
Can I have it? Yes, sir, or ma'am, you can.
Mm.
Okay. What do I need to do to have? That's the key question. Okay. In our area, you need to have 2 parkings to accommodate a secondary unit in a house. I'm not having those.
Right.
I have only 1 parking.
Right.
Okay. What do? Can I have a secondary parking? Oh, that's a great question. You can have a secondary parking, but you got to maintain 50% green space in your front lawn. Oh, I might not have that space. So a young person should be educated to ask the right question.
Right.
And those right questions after that should cross with those answers from the municipality should cross with the answers you heard from the real estate.
Right.
And more cross references like that you have,
Then you'll know.
more you know.
Right.
Exactly. But now, okay, how do you know before you go to the municipality? What you could do is call Acadia, for an example.
Yeah.
And you're saying, hey guys, I want to work with you on a renovation. I just got a house with conditions that I can have a secondary unit, for example.
Yeah.
And, what do I need to do to have it? So Acadia can help you. Then you don't have to trust Acadia. You can talk to the municipality, cross-reference between Acadia to the municipality with the real estate, and you're good to go. But many times you will find that a client calls us and they're like, yeah, I want to, we bought a property, we want to do a triplex, we want to have a triplex. And we're telling them, you're not allowed. And they're like, holy, so what do we do? Duplex. That's the maximum.
Right.
Or one secondary unit. Or, so many situations that people are making the wrong decision because they are not doing their homework.
Right.
So as a young person, this is, I believe, the best way of doing it. Cross. Yeah.
Right. Going to municipal.
Yeah.
Like that place and just like
You know
get the
what?
answer.
Call Acadia. If you still didn't get the house, call Acadia and tell them, listen, I would appreciate if your consultant can come on this and that date and give us a zoning review or give us check if we can have a secondary unit. And we're willing to pay like a couple of hundred just for review.
Yeah.
Fine. We can make a on-site visit and, get it done for you. Like how many times you can have a secondary unit, for example, but the house conditions are not there for it.
Right.
Like, for example, you need an egress window, you need a door, you need an exit, and you don't have those. And all of a sudden, somebody like Max will come in and tell you, oh, okay, so you want a secondary unit. You're going to need to have a window here. And you're like, oh, okay, that might cost me. How much is that going to cost?
Yeah.
X amount of money. How much this, that? And eventually you realize, that's way too much what I was expected.
Right.
I had a budget, let's say, $50,000 to finish this basement as a secondary unit. Now I need to spend 70. From zero to altogether. A contractor comes in. They're not aware of the costs. They don't know. I've seen a lot of situations where, homeowners would call a contractor. They're like, okay, we want to buy that house. We want to do a secondary unit. Like a friend contractor who is there with them, like from previous properties or whatever. And so they know each other. So the contractor would come in before they even buy a house to kind of give them a feel how much everything is going to cost because they will get the job,
Right.
And sometimes I would come on site for this kind of situations. And after they called, let's say, somebody else, and the contractor would come in and they're like, okay, finish a basement, $50,000. Okay, great, $50,000.
Yeah.
They would buy a house, and then they would realize that they know that they need permit. They would find Acadia. Acadia would spec everything necessary as per minimum codes. And all of a sudden, the secondary unit is not 50, it's 70. And they call back the contractor. They're like, well, you said it's 50. Well, yeah, but Max specified this insulation, which is a must by code, but they specified like cheap insulation from Home Depot that is not even good for our value, which is heating and cooling, right?
Yeah.
Max specified this, and then Max specified a window in here. I thought we're just going to do a couple of doors. Well, and then the homeowner, well, how did you think we're going to have a bedroom here without a window? But you see many things that were not discussed. And all of a sudden they're like, now it's cost more.
Creating snowball.
But when
effect.
I come and for example, when we're going to go and look for houses for you, for example, and you're going to say, well, Max, I want to rent a basement. And I'm going to tell you, well, Vic, listen, what were you thinking? Well, I want a bedroom, one bedroom apartment in the basement. Okay, so make sure that we have an egress window in this area, so that's going to cost money.
Right.
You're going to have a kitchen in here and not in there because we want to save on plumbing work.
Yeah.
Let's try and use the existing rough-ins for a bathroom. Let's make sure that the R value, if the basement is pre-finished, for example, an older house, let's make sure that the R value in the walls is sufficient because we don't want to start ripping out the walls.
Yeah.
And if we do, so that at least you know about it, what kind of ceiling assembly you have, because people don't even realize that you have to have a special ceiling assembly for secondary units.
True.
And stuff like that. Because we don't want to get to the point that when Vic owns the house and Vic has, let's say, whatever amount of money for renovations, all of a sudden you cannot
Yeah.
afford
Like over budget.
Exactly. So not everybody got a
Got a full budget. Yeah. Got a
co-worker
Co-worker, yeah.
boss that can help them out with that.
Exactly. Which I really appreciated. Here we go.
Definitely.
Yeah.
But like a lot of people, they actually have to think about those things.
Right.
Because people would come in, they would look, oh, great, that's finished.
But-
But then you start living in the house. The first winter comes in, walls
Oh,
are cold, everything is
problem.
cold. What are you gonna do?
Yeah. That's a problem.
Of course.
Because remember, we went to one of the property in Barrie, remember?
Yes.
Yeah. And I was taking quite a few pictures on DSLR camera for marketing purposes. And you were showing me, like those
Yeah.
cracks in the ceiling. And I see, as a, non-experience, I mean,
You would never see that.
I never see that. I never see that. Even there was one crack, a huge gap
Yeah.
in between the wall and the
yeah.
desk of the
Yeah.
of the kitchen.
So
Just pretty bad.
let's
You just showed
put
to
a
me.
disclaimer out there. We didn't do the work on this house. We really we helped on this house to do the engineering and everything else. It was done by the homeowner. So really, just to explain better
Yeah.
what happened is,
Yeah.
it's one of those situations when you're coming into the house and you see a beautiful renovation.
Yeah.
Beautiful. But then you start getting closer, deeper, and you see, well, a countertop is not finished correctly or cut badly. And then all of a sudden you see the ceiling. That's really why they had
Yeah,
cracks, because
yeah.
they didn't do a good mud and paint job. The whole ceiling was, kind of
Having
done very wrong.
Yeah.
And then you see the cabinets are not installed correctly. And overall, all of a sudden from what they say, good from far, but far from good.
pretty far from
That's
good.
pretty much what we saw.
And even the ceiling, remember? Like we saw there brushes.
It wasn't straight. And
It wasn't straight at all. You can see a layer actually.
But you see, this is the situation as well of a homeowner that is trying to sell their house. We don't want a young person like you
to purchase this kind of
experience
house.
that.
Yeah.
And respectfully, you're not in construction, so you would
Pay-
probably live in that house the first year and a half being pretty happy,
Yeah.
not knowing it looks cool and everything. But at the end of the day, you can buy for the same amount of money something that finished nicer.
Yeah. So why not choose the nicer one?
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, I feel like so far that's my take, kind of my questions for now for me but also for people out there who wants to purchase a house, because I have so many friends, they're like around my age, and they are working in again tech company, and I'm pretty sure if you're watching this episode you will know I'm talking about you guys.
Yeah, guys.
Yeah, they
like
are.
and subscribe.
Like and subscribe. Yeah.
We need your support to continue doing that. By the
Yeah,
way.
exactly. Yeah,
should tell
exactly. Yeah, like and subscribe, and contact us. Like
and subscribe.
Yeah, like and subscribe. Yeah, and we were having quite a few conversation about like buying homes, because they're around my age or like one year older than me, and they truly do want to buy a home. And say, yeah, now we're sharing the room, not sharing a room, but now we're sharing the space. But like eventually, of course, people wants their own home,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Especially for young people.
Yeah.
to have your own home and family, you know. So yeah, I feel like this episode is, I don't know, extra important.
Yeah, I think it's very important.
Yeah.
And also, like, you don't know that, Vic, because
Yeah.
unlike you, I was here
Yeah.
as a homeowner more than 10 years ago.
Yeah.
So luckily for you, you didn't need, you know, you were young enough not to know. But what I'm trying to put out there is, if clearly I hope that not only young people, but also older
yeah.
homeowners, I mean, would look at that when they're looking for something for their kids, hopefully, or,
yeah.
you know, helping. There are many people that will look at that. But what I'm trying to stress out there, that we're not in the same market as it was 10 years ago, as it wasn't 15 years ago. You know, back then you could invest, you know, $20,000, $30,000, which is, again, respectfully, it's a lot of money. But when you're getting a bigger property, it's not a lot of money. So even if you do lose on something, you're not losing a
Losing that
lot.
much, yeah.
At the end of the day, you sell the property here, there, maybe. Usually it's still a win. The market today, the prices are different. The inflation is different.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, which is the truth, the market is up. Inflation is up. Properties prices are up. Salaries are not.
This is pathetic.
And it is what it is.
Yeah.
We're not here to judge that today. We're here to try and help young people. So I do believe as much homework as you do, as many people as you put to work is just a benefit.
Right.
And one thing that the last thing that I want to advise,
Yeah.
I think we had enough for one day. I don't
one
know.
day.
What do you think about it?
Yeah.
But the one thing I want to advise is, and by the way, when I was teaching in the college, I was always saying that an answer is only as good as the question. And I will explain that in a second. Secondly, there is no such thing as stupid question. There is such thing as being stupid not asking.
Nice quote.
And I always explain that to everybody in my classes. The reason is very simple. Because I just told you to cross references. If you're going to go to a municipality and ask, what do I do? Can I have a secondary unit? They will tell you yes. The question is not can I or can I not. I want to buy a house. I want to have a secondary unit. Can I have a secondary unit in this house? That's a wrong question, because probably it's going to be a yes. What do I need to have a secondary unit in this house? Well, you need to have more than 2 parkings, one per apartment, which means 2. Now you realize that I might not have that. You need to have more parkings. What do I do to gain more parkings?
Right.
Do I have enough space to get that parking? So there is a lot of specific questions that can be asked that the municipality will answer if you ask those questions.
Right.
If you come in and you ask, can I have? Yes, you can. Are you going to be losing on it? Yes, you will. So you want to avoid that. And secondly, a lot of people thinking that if I'm going to ask my real estate agent a lot of questions, they're going to get upset with us. No, you paid them a lot of money to do so.
So why not? So
Yes.
why not ask him?
Yes. Oh, well, listen, I called, I'm looking for, 3 houses. I already called 3 different consultants to ask the same questions because I don't want them to be upset with me because I actually want to hire them in the future. What do I do? At the end of the day, you have to think about your own personal benefit.
True.
It's about you.
Yeah.
It's not about anyone. If a consultant tells you, well, you know what, I'm sorry, buddy, you called me for 3 times now, you didn't buy anything, you're wasting my time, clearly that's not a consultant for you.
Definitely. And that's how you discern between a good and bad.
Right?
Obviously.
To me, I know that anyone in my staff, if you're going to call in and you're like, listen, I'm your potential client, I heard Max talking, and we need your help, we're not going to tell you no. We're just going to, listen, if it's a lot of work, we're going to tell you, okay, we're going to charge you a little bit, but we're going to do it for you. Or if it's something quick, we're going to do it no problem.
Yeah, right away, yeah.
But we will not dismiss you. You know what I mean? So So definitely, young buyers, older buyers, mid-age buyers, everybody should care about their own personal benefit.
Yeah.
And hopefully that will align with, with our company and it works for everybody.
Yeah.
But definitely encourage everybody to ask the right questions and not to feel ashamed to ask a question. Because also young buyers sometimes think, I don't want to look stupid. I want to look smart. So I'm just not going to ask the question. I'm going to research it later. That's being stupid.
Right. Or just, am I asking too many questions? Am I bothering
That's being
the
stupid.
consultant? Yeah.
Because me, as a very confident investor, I will ask all the questions I need to ask to get all the answers. Because there's no way in the world, there is a way in the world to lose all the time, but there's no way in the world that I did not minimize my risk to equal almost zero.
Yeah. True. And not being lazy.
Yeah.
Not being lazy of asking questions.
So young people out there, please ask questions. Don't be ashamed to ask questions. At the end of the day, it's about you. It's not about anybody else. And if somebody tells you that, well, I'm working out of commission and I'm wasting so much time on you, pretty much like real estates or other, that's probably a good sign that that's not a good real estate for you. A real estate that cares about you is a real estate that will spend as much money, as much time as possible, and try to help you out as fast as possible in order to get something.
Exactly.
Out of the deal, yes.
Yeah. And I remember when you're talking about not only for young people, but also for old people. Not old people, but parents to looking for their kids.
Yeah.
Remember the last episode we were talking about the secondary unit and ran out like a half price for a kid.
Oh yeah.
I was like, oh, this joke is like popping into my mind.
Yeah,
but this is actually pretty smart, smart move. Yeah.
Yeah, and by the way, same situations.
Yeah.
We call it a multi-generational home, right?
Yeah.
So imagine you're looking for a house because you're like, well, my kid is turning 18, for an example. I want them to start paying rent, whatever. You're getting a house, you want a secondary unit, bam, and you can't.
Yeah. So why not?
Yeah, I have a lot of friends that invested, you're not going to believe, millions of dollars in getting properties. And because of lack of, every time I'm giving examples, I'm trying to make sure people will not get offended or upset. But they spend millions of dollars. Like, I do have a friend who invested into not a property, but land, a lot of money. They wanted to build their own house, invested tons of money into engineering and everything, only to realize that what they want to build is not allowed.
That's so sad.
And wasting so much time and money into getting that done. And a couple of years later, you can be in trouble because of that.
Because it's not allowed.
No, because now, after investing so much into it and it's not allowed, then whoever helped them out didn't do the best homework, got them to the point where it doesn't sell for what they needed to sell.
This is pretty bad. So
homework.
Asking the right questions.
The right question.
Yeah, and finding
not can I build a house, but what do I need to build a house?
True. Asking like open-ended questions. At least letting people to like consultant, right? Like the other people to answer you more. Like more information you have, more consolidate, firm, like decision you can make.
Yeah.
This is definitely the way to go. So, yeah, I feel like this is by far, so far, this is my questions down for me, but also for my friends, also for people out
friends.
there. Yeah.
Like and subscribe.
Yeah.
You think we maximize the soul?
Yeah. And back to work.
Yeah. All right, guys. And thank you very much for being with us. I hope that was a helpful episode. Vic, thank you very much for being here.
It's pretty helpful. It's super helpful.
Jamie, my friend, thank you very much for being there behind the scene. And yeah, guys, after all that, let's get back to work.